Hello, guys.
Alex, how are you? How have you been?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Uh, it's been a productive week, and happy to give you guys some updates and some exciting moves forward for the team and new recruits and things like that. So
Amazing, amazing. I think okay. I'll start the AMA, and I think by the time Eric will join. So first of all, thank you everyone to join this AMA. This AMA is meant to give you some updates about Chrysalis, what we guys have been doing for the past 1 month, few weeks, and we will also be revealing the face of the new advisor who has on board Chrysalis. Okay, let's start with the name. Eric. Eric has been in the tech space for quite a long time. He has been known as driving the industry in the tech space. Amazing experience. But I think we should hear more about Eric from himself.
Thank you so much. It's a real pleasure to be here with you all today. And,
No worries. Um, I think let's just start with okay. So the AMA, it will have two sessions. Initially, we will introduce Eric and what his role in Chrysalis, how he's helping Chrysalis move towards a much better product, as well as on the second phase of the AMA, we would be taking up questions from the community. You can put your questions anytime during the AMA in the comment section, and we'll be taking up the questions towards any of the speakers, and we would be answering all your questions as well. Okay. Let's without further ado, let's just start. Uh, Eric, can you introduce yourselves to the community?
absolutely. So fantastic to be here with you all. I'm very excited for Chrysalis and kind of what we're doing in terms of not only the present, but also the future. And, joining the team and, especially with my collective background, starting off, in the payment sphere, moving into traditional finance, building, some pretty solid brands throughout the crypto ecosystem over the past decade or so has really allowed me to kind of hone my ability to kind of transform communities and ecosystems whilst leveraging technology. And technology right now, especially as far as innovation is concerned, we need to be at the forefront. We need to be completely on the edge, and in order to be there, we have to make sure that the solutions and the technology is completely advanced. And, I think with Chrysalis and, what the team has actually put together here, which I know Alex is going to be chomping at the bit to kind of update, um, I see some really amazing opportunities. And, I'm excited for the growth of the community. I'm excited for the product roadmap and excited to bring in bigger ecosystems in order to showcase the value and the technological components that Chrysalis will be powering, which is quite exciting.
Amazing.
yeah, and Eric, I've known you for a while now. I mean, guys, Eric's been pretty humble in that. I don't know how long all of you guys been in, but Eric has been in this space for well over a decade. So was one of the early movers in not just obviously coming from a payments background. There's a clear coherent move there into something like crypto. Um, I don't know if you one of probably Eric might be good is for you to just let people know as well some of your accolades. I know there's quite a lot of them, but a lot of you may, if you've been in the space for 10 years plus. Actually, I used this product way before I actually knew Eric. Eric, maybe you probably know what I'm talking about in terms of the exchange that you built and drove. Be good to
Yes,
just tell people, what kind of things you've actually done, who you are
sure.
in this industry, and the background of the products that you've built, taken to market, and exited would be great.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you for that overview, and so nice to hear, Alex. Especially with our relationship, and of course with what we're building together. Um, in 2000, I think it was what 13 or so. started off with, really focusing around the on-ramp and off-ramp sector and how we can facilitate payments for merchants, and was able to, work with some very, let's call them very big thought leaders and forefathers of our space, in terms of building the first, crypto payments company. It was called GoCoin. Then we realized that there were multiple chains, including, not just Bitcoin, but Ethereum coming and various other chains on top of that. So in 2015, some of my partners and I, were able to collaborate and come up with one of the first swaps exchanges called Changely, and was running Changely as CEO for many years, until DeFi came about. And during lockdown, everybody was like, "Oh my God, DeFi is taking over." And I decided to, focus my efforts on building some very interesting dexes, and products and underlying services in the DeFi space. And as a result of that, it's really allowed me to kind of understand where some of the gaps lie at the moment. And I think it's very clear that, everybody's looking to build the next L1, everybody's looking to build the next L2, but, really at the core, what are you actually doing with what type of technology? And that's where I think Chrysalis comes and stands out in terms of, what I've seen, and I see a lot on the market. But this is why I'm very excited to be a part of this team and to advise, especially with my network, and being able to bring in quality partners, and builders, because that's exactly what we need, especially with the roadmap that we have ahead.
Yeah. And Eric, what if you, I mean, yeah, payments is one thing. What drove you to jump head on into crypto? Do you remember any particular time or event that happened that sort of spurred your journey?
Funny, it's not just one event. I think it's a culmination of various experiences and like signs that were kind of facing me. But one conversation led to another, and I find myself, I was actually running a cash a cash to it's like a cash online network early in the US. It was called ZipZap, and allowed you to actually buy, shop at Walmart or whatever, Dwayne Reed or any things online, but without using a card. You could use cash, so it'd create a QR code. And then, at that time, we didn't really know what Bitcoin was. And, Charlie Shrem reached out to me, who was running New York's first Bitcoin exchange called BitInstant. And he's like, "This would be a perfect solution for us. We would love to integrate you." And, at that time, we were just doing loads for, companies like Jawala and what have you. And, when Charlie came knocking, we realized that this was the perfect marriage, so to speak, if there ever was one. And we realized the slow adoption into, well, not a slow adoption, really took off like a thunderbolt. People actually going into Dwayne Reed, CVS, anywhere that had a red phone for MoneyGram, because that was the bill pay. So you would create a voucher code basically for the amount of Bitcoin that you wanted to buy, and then you would go into a local MoneyGram to pay cash. And this is when Bitcoin was sub sub $11 or something. But so that kind of what really got me excited about the space. And then working with alongside some of the most distinguished entrepreneurs, thought leaders, visionaries, has really instilled in me a lot of knowledge and experience, both good and bad. But that's what defines the kind of skill set and the ability to kind of grow communities and ecosystems with that gathered knowledge and understanding. So it's been a exciting uh, ride. I expect it to only continue. We're just scratching the surface here. There's so much more to come. when people talk to me about, oh, I missed out, I didn't get involved early enough, I said, this is all blue sky, brother. This is all blue sky. So, there's a lot of really exciting things on the forefront, and I couldn't be more thrilled than to be advising and working with the team over at Chrysalis. And Alex is a superstar. We've known each other a few years, and really connect extremely well. We both have the same ideologies and thesis around how technology needs to empower, not power.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And I mean, Eric, you've got quite an interesting, experience both in sort of traditional payments or traditional finance, and then a long tenure in blockchain, going back to the likes of Charlie Shrem. And, this is before Ethereum or Buterin or anyone than that, were even known about. How do you kind of feel that dual perspective like enhances your approach to the blockchain industry at large?
That's a really great question. And by working alongside, some of these early visionaries and thought leaders, um, it's really allowed me to kind of, understand uh, how to operate not only in the traditional market, but also how this whole space was created from literally nothing. And to be at that very beginning, that genesis period, when the space was so small, I could count the amount of people that actually were discussing or meeting about these things, and what have you, on my hands, and I'm very humbled to actually, be part of such a exciting community, because, being involved so early gives you the ability to call upon various partners and providers, and other entrepreneurs in the space, especially when you're looking to build and scale. It's so important to have the trust and those relationships, and we intend to leverage that and utilize that for the growth of this community and ecosystem. And I think that's really part of the value. And by being by being involved from the beginning, it's allowed me to see the future at the same time, because always, as we know, past, present, and future are combined into one. And by seeing everything happen over the past decade plus, allows me to now balance and handle for the next decade plus, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. And Eric, obviously, we'll get on to RWA, which, as you guys know in the community, is essentially our core focus in the blockchain industry. What drew you, Eric, to Chrysalis? Because I think it's important for people in our ecosystem and community. There's from someone being, and including yourself and I, being so long in this industry. It's getting on 20 years, which is gone past pretty quickly, but there's been a huge amount of movement very lately, with the spurt of DeFi, Ethereum's wave 217, now we've sort of we're maturing out into more of a robust, let's say, technology that's empowering a lot more than just, a Bitcoin movement or even a currency transaction. But what sort of drew you to Chrysalis and Promax Digital as a group?
Fantastic question. And just to highlight, I see lots of technology. I've seen it all, as they say, or rather, I've seen enough. No. And on that point, I think it's very much it's very important to note that technology cannot exist alone, right? There are three pillars in which you need to really understand here. It comes down to technology, community, and liquidity operating in harmony. in order to create fluidity and value prosperity. So, I think I think it's important to note that, it's really about who's involved, who's who. And, having such a distinguished group like Promex Digital and the Promex group, to be, facilitating the ability to even build such an ecosystem is extremely powerful. And I think it's important to highlight just, how important that is, Alex.
Yeah, I think that's a good rendition. Let's get a little bit, Eric, if we can, into the sort of nuts and bolts of what drives Chrysalis as a platform, which is RWA and real world assets. Forgetting Chrysalis right now, and we're going to get guys into a little bit more about the key innovation of what I and other people who are working day in day out see
Absolutely.
in terms of Chrysalis's impact. But where do you see, like, what for you is like tokenizing real assets, and why do you think it's important?
This term RWA keeps getting flocked about, and
Exactly.
Not everybody understands what it actually means, because people are not giving it enough proper attention, I'd like to say. And when you're using the term RWA and real world assets are being discussed, this is revolutionary. This is the most groundbreaking thing, even bigger than Bitcoin, in my opinion, as we kind of scale and grow. But the ability to actually take sitting assets, real world assets, and tokenize them to give fractional ownership or a way to liquefy and move that value, it exponentially transforms the entire space with things like the property sector or pretty much anything, really. Any real world asset that you can imagine. Going through that tokenized process is extremely important, and that's why having the necessary profile and partners and providers, both on the technology side as well as the security side, and the business operational side, it's so important. And that's why I think the Chrysalis platform itself is such a differentiator when it comes to actually powering the RWA ecosystem. And really, I think that's the main focus, or at least that's what drew me in initially, was, oh my God, here's the perfect set of tools in terms of actually how the approach needs to be taken to facilitate institutional grade RWA value transfer.
Yeah, absolutely. And guys, in terms of moving in that direction, it's exactly what brought Eric and the trust and the relationship to this opportunity. And I think it's good because I want to highlight a little bit, when you typically look at RWAs and then adding an NFT technology or enabling that through NFT technology, what I want to highlight is what makes Chrysalis as a platform unique or certainly innovative is it extends the fundamental capabilities of NFTs into very new dimensions. And how I'm going to sort of explain that. NFTs, when they came out, and also RWAs, which are thrown around, the way that we see this is, you could put a piece of art or anything and then turn it into an NFT, a digital piece that can be fractionalized. What's driven our innovation or use of NFTs is much more in the proof of ownership and authenticity. And that extends to something like art. But what an NFT does is it provides immutable proof of ownership. And the way that we utilize that in the real world asset space in terms of essentially a royalty or loyalty or proof that I own or have access to those royalties and loyalty points is what we do. And there's something else that I find quite interesting in the way that we approach this, guys. By creating fractionalized ownership with fundamental immutable proof, we're enhancing liquidity. And if you tie an institutional grade access into this space, whether it's real estate, whether it's intellectual property rights, whether it's gold, whether it's oil, the NFT itself enables a much easier fundamental trading platform, and that fractional ownership just increases liquidity inside that opportunity, and that's why we've done it. The other part that I like about using an NFT and Chrysalis, this is dynamic, and the way that we use smart contracts and RWAs is we include dynamic pricing, we include dynamic ownership models. For example, what I mean by that, royalties can be automated for secondary sales, or we can add dynamic pricing, which can respond to market conditions. These are things that are built inside a smart contract that offer a very fresh sort of new wrapper over what an NFT can do. And obviously, you've got the normal stuff like decentralization. It ensures ownership, and it also ensures that any transaction history is transparent. So that for me is what drives Chrysalis in terms of its innovation and what we've used NFT technology to accomplish. The bottom side of that is its access, its inclusion. By tokenizing an RWA through an NFT, we're essentially allowing broader access to those opportunities that historically have been restricted to larger investors. And what we're doing as a business, the further we mature, the further the technology matures, there aren't a huge amount of companies utilizing NFT technology in this way. We're calling them certs. I know we've spoken about dots and things like that. The reason we're calling them certs, and this is going to be a lead question, Eric, to you, what I see that is different for the first time in history, yes, is access. But what blockchain technology, whatever you want to call it, cryptocurrency, what it's done for the first time in history is forcefully move businesses. You'd call this customer-centric 10, 15 years ago in enterprise. What blockchain has done is propel us into community-driven technology, community-driven initiatives. Everything is about inclusion. And blockchain, because of its transparency, because of its necessity to build communities, has sort of really played a massive role in opening up that narrative in any industry. For me, and leading on, Eric, to you, in terms of your background in community, and I hope that gave you guys a little bit of understanding of why we're using NFTs. Certs are community engagement. Okay, that's essentially an RT is our token, but the cert is about engaging our community. Okay, how important, Eric, to you do you feel communities are in building projects such as Chrysalis?
Yeah, phenomenal overview and another great question. And, as I mentioned before, community is not everything. It's part of the equation, but it's by far the most important part. And, without community, you really have nowhere to showcase or put technology to the test and, allow that mass adoption curve to unfold. And the wonderful thing about, I think, the space in general, as far as community is concerned, is really the true innovation behind the blockchain itself. And, it's a lot of people tend to forget this and they focus on price action and they don't really, get to the core thesis of why we're all building in this space. And it's this very simple scenario around real-time auditability and an irrevocable trust scenario, right? that's the true innovation and the ability to solve counterparty interactions, right? The ability to remove the middleman, to create that peer-to-peer like ecosystem, to empower communities, to open up communities, to remove any unforeseen or unimaginable or unwanted borders that will allow communities to further flourish, connect, grow, and benefit from that value transfer and that knowledge transfer. It's actually quite a deep, much deeper conversation, but it really is something that's playing out, and you can see it already, especially now, being in the space for over 10 years now. But as they say, no space is different, or no cycle is different from one another. We've seen this similar cycle play out, during the technology, the fintech wave, and then before that, in the financial markets in the early 2000s, and then the dot-com era in the early 90s. So, everybody's always suspicious and very like, oh my God, is this something I should do or not? Or, nobody really believes in it. And okay, I'm not going to pay attention. I'm going to tune it out. Right. And then just, over time, as things get developed, as there's more plumbing, as there's more validation, as there's more services, as there's more community, that sentiment tends to, gravitate and then magnify. So that's why community is such an important component. And then having the key differentiators around the technology and the accessibility is, one of the driving factors that I think, Chrysalis is nailing.
Yeah, and part of for us, I mean, we mentioned trust as a big factor in this space, and I think, whether it's Bitcoin, whether it's Chrysalis, whether it's other projects, the whole point of that kind of, decentralization is allowing people to essentially trust maths, trust code. You don't need to trust a person. I think that drive has been pretty strong in any project. And for us, we want to find ways of, essentially rewarding loyalty. And that's really what Chrysalis is all about. So it's good that we all share that. I got a question for you, Eric, and it would be your opinion, really. It doesn't have to be so much Chrysalis related. I'm sure people probably have questions, and we'll open up to that. But what trends, looking ahead in the sort of broader blockchain, cryptocurrency landscape, what kind of trends have you seen with your ear on the ground in terms of developments within the RWA space? What is it that you sort of are excited about in the next few years?
Yeah, I think the most exciting thing for me, especially with what I've seen, even just recently, is a really nice focus around the real estate sector. And, we have talked about this for some time, but I think the real estate sector is just perfect industry and so ripe to really demonstrate the value and the technological components of, how the tokenization of the RWA actually will work. And I've seen this with another company, EstateX, who've done a phenomenal job at, being able to fractionalize buildings and apartments and homes. So you can already see the space unfolding and developing. And for me, that's really one of the most exciting things. But I also think that, by providing access and education around this RWA sector, we're now writing that future. We're now creating that canvas and really getting a future community excited about something they didn't know about. Because there's a lot of people that, really don't understand what a real world asset is. And I think this is a great opportunity, especially with, I think, a lot of the programs that Chrysalis is putting together, to really break down and explain and provide that accessibility to a much bigger audience.
Oh,
Right.
yeah, it was me. I was muted there, guys. My apology. Yeah, I would agree. I think, real estate is certainly something that a lot of people have, it's a long enduring market that is ripe to open up to sort of fractionalization. Takes me back to things like timeshare, essentially the same, although there's ownership, which an NFT does. Speaking of Chrysalis, does very, very well. It's that provenance. I am the undisputed owner. You want to check it? It's on a transparent record. So that for me, I think. I also think there's some maybe more mature utilization of NFTs. And again, this sort of is bringing this back to Chrysalis, because it is about title. It's about ownership. I own this, and there are benefits that come with ownership. Certainly about owning, something like real estate, which in itself, as long as we're in the right place, should mature. Buy land, buy real estate. If one's choose. In terms of Chrysalis, what I like, guys, about what we're doing. If you look at a real world asset, and for me, a real world asset is something that has value in itself, right? It's tangible. Other projects that do very, very well, what's really tangible about it? And what I like about RWAs, if you want to use that term, is the fact that it is tangible. I can touch it and hold it. And real estate, we're growing as a population. We need homes. It's never going to really go away. Likewise with oil or bauxite, that we, as you guys know, we have mining operations, aluminium, which is used. It's in pretty much everything we touch, whether it's a Coke can, whatever. There's so many things that you're going to see aluminium used. And the reason for us that's value in itself is the sustainable need for that commodity, for that raw asset. And that's what's essentially drives something very interesting. It's the need for that particular asset, which is why Chrysalis focuses on real world assets. I want to talk a little bit about, and Eric, this may be things you can answer or not, but it'd be good to have your opinion on it. In terms of the projects, of which we have 7 and 8 being launched very soon, which you guys are going to hear about as we prepare for our launch. In terms of the projects, Eric, of Chrysalis, is there any for you that are most exciting in our portfolio? Is there anything that you particularly, if you again look at RWA, would be your favorite?
I think I would like to say the most, okay, creative is one word, but I'd say one of the most interesting for me is probably around the fisheries and the ability for, RWAs to even play a role in transforming a complete nation's fishing rights, and also empowering so many people at the same time. I think maybe it would be helpful to give some context, Alex, to what I'm, referring to, obviously. But, in general, RWAs having the ability to empower, emerging markets and nations as a whole is a really big deal for me. And I think this project alone in itself is really something quite special.
Yeah, and I think that's been a big ethos for a lot of us that have joined the cause of Chrysalis. There is a huge impact where accessibility plays an important role. And a lot, guys, our ethos, everything that we do, everything that we've touched, and this comes down from all of our management team, is essentially nation building, is empowering these nations, whether it's through gold, whether it's through mining of oil, is to actually ensuring that the nations that they come out of are empowered to improve lives. That's been a fundamental reason for me, now nearing on almost 2 years in the company and seeing our progression. It is important, I think, for the world. And a lot of although it's not directly a Chrysalis application. It certainly is part of Promax Digital, which is the Earth Exchange. And guys, if for all of our projects in the mining space and raw commodity space, that ties quite an important role. It was very important to our partners, Promax, to get that up and running. But essentially, it is about improving lives. It is about ensuring that the flow of money is given to the right individuals, and that in a nutshell, I think is really what drives a lot of us in the management team is we are, as a business, looking at also improving nations, building nations' ecosystems as much as building our own. And it's a nice thing to say, Eric, and I think any business should be evaluated on its let's say philosophy or mission or vision, which fundamentally is, we're a business. We make money, where everything we do is needed to make money. But the actual real underlying philosophy and mission and vision of us at Chrysalis is really to nation build, and utilize blockchain technology to create accessibility to anybody and everyone that wants to join us, and at the same time, utilize that liquidity to improve the people's lives of which we're mining from. So it's crypto, I think, in itself, with its decentralized nature, with its ability to provide access to everyone, that's all a flow. And as a business, guys, that is really what gets us out of bed, is you guys in our community, and also that we know that our vision and mission is to give back to the nations that we draw our raw assets from. That said, I imagine Nishant as well, and if you want to field some questions for us, that's perfectly cool for us to maybe answer some questions from the community if they're there. I got one last thing for you, Eric, and thank you for giving your opinion on the space and introducing yourself to our community. What advice? I've got two, actually. One would be, what advice would you give, newcomers, not just, in our community, but also sort of crypto at large? What advice would you give to newcomers that are accessing this market for the first time in relations to RWAs? Is there anything that you would look for, or what would you give as a newcomer?
Patience leads
Good one. I like that. Yeah.
So, a lot of people tend to be very hasty with decision making. It's kind of like being looking through a website, or they say that the most time that you have, the most face time that you actually have with someone is actually when they're pulling money out of a cash machine. So you want to be very effective with the amount of FaceTime and messaging is so important. So being able to just process, be patient, and pragmatic about your decision making is going to lead to a lot better understanding as well as appreciation. Don't rush into anything without understanding it first and foremost. Everybody will benefit at the end of the day as long as they take their time to research, understand, and make the right decisions. When I say blue sky, it's very true. It's all very blue sky. There might be competitors and a competitive landscape, and there's a fit for any person or any willing individual to participate in this ecosystem. And I just want to make that very clear. So, do your own research and therefore make the correct decisions.
It's a good point. And lastly, Eric, can you share like an anecdote or surprising maybe lesson that you've learned during your tenure in the blockchain industry that others might find entertaining or possibly insightful?
Oof. All I can say is, yeah, thinking of it's funny to think about, where Bitcoin was and where Bitcoin is at the moment. And, this is coming from somebody who's literally lived their entire life off Bitcoin. So, looking around and thinking about a lot of the, the things that I have bought or done is quite surprising. Oh, that's 100K or that's this and that. So that's quite been humorous for me to think about. But, that's just numbers and money at the end of the day. I think the most thing, it's really around have confidence and believe in yourself, and keep your friends that you have very close. Like, you should be able to count the amount of friends on your one hand in terms of your small circle, and that small circle should always, no matter what, have your back. And that comes with years and years of understanding how to have that right circle. And then, each person can then add value to one another. And they say, there's a saying, Alex, where I come from, and I think this is, known all around, is like, you are who you surround yourself with.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I like that. I like that. And, guys, certainly all of us feel that are industry veterans in this space, all, number one, enjoy working with each other, and two, the community that we're building. And if we're going to take away anything, guys, and I think Eric, you mentioned this at the beginning, Bitcoin's nearing 100K. The future of space is in RWA. So, which is what Chrysalis is doing. And I think it's good, if we look at like a 5-year roadmap in terms of some of us, leading in this space, and I think I speak for all of us that might not be on the call.
Mm-hmm.
Our main goal, guys, and Eric, I know you and I have had, conversations on this. This has been around, we're nearing on almost 20 years, okay, since crypto, whatever you want to call it, blockchain, Web3 has kind of taken about. And it's taken a while. I for one, am blessed for regulation, compliance. These are things that really need to have come into the space. And we've sort of had this explosion of, new projects, new flows of money. It's really quite quickly exploded, and this has been something that's been driven by people, not so much by regulatory powers. That said, as the start to catch up, I feel we are literally moving into this very, very, very interesting space where traditional finance realizes this isn't going anywhere. Governments are starting to give certainty to pioneers of this space finally. With all technology, Eric, yes, technology is innovative. Blockchain's been around since the 90s. Chris Stornetta. It's not really new, but what's new is the enabling. What has that technology enabled? And here we are in this new DeFi space. For us, and for the crypto community at large, what I feel has lacked
I think Alexander, you got cut off. Okay. Um, I
Should
think
we should
Alexander.
we should we open it up to questions then for the community, and then let Alex get his connection back?
Sure, definitely. That's what I'm gonna do now. Okay, let's do these questions from the community. The first question is, what is Eric's role? Do you come in as an advisor or as a full-time, and how do you help customers?
Yep, I'm advising the team in order to kind of add some initial value in terms of some, partnerships and some of the unique things that they're looking at in terms of how they, scale out some of the accessibility of the technology itself.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Um, Considered for future. Okay. Another question is, because you have a payments background, do you see like because of your payments background, Chrysalis will have a better streamline of their ecosystem cash flow or just financial flow?
There's so much passive value in this space. So yes, as a natural facilitator and, with my domain expertise, that obviously naturally will come as an effect of that.
Mm-hmm. And as we already know, like RWA is still a really new technology and it is still growing. Are you also working on any new concepts for the future project tokens or like for the future of the project?
Yeah, I mean, there's always something that we're cooking up, and especially with myself and my distinguished team of friends and cohorts. There's a lot of exciting things, especially with payments and community and banking sector. So, it's really some exciting things that we're working on, and I'm sure that there'll be more information, more announcements to come as the days, months, years continue to unfold.
Mm-hmm.
Guys, I think I lost you for a while.
No problem. I'll take one more community question, then I think Alexander, because it's a series of questions from the same person. Uh, are you also working on the L1 Chrysalis blockchain that has been in the development cycle?
I think that's more a question for Alex, but I'm not involved on the build of the technology of Chrysalis itself. So I think Alex can probably speak better to the actual core technology of the L1 and its differentiating components.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. I think these are the questions that we have from the community. Over to you, Alex, because I think you got cut off when you were asking the last question.
Yeah, what I was saying, and I think Eric would share this with me. Being so long in this space, going on quarter of a century between us and all the rest in the group. Chris, we're all industry veterans. When we started out this venture many years ago, people just RWAs weren't such a thing, and if they were, no one really knew how to do them properly. And here we are, 4 years later, in a very exciting space.
Mm-hmm.
For me, if you look at the future, guys, of where we're going, one, the industry at large has grown very quickly, and that's really been what's interesting for me. Is normally what you see in something like technology, it comes from either a top-down approach or a down-up approach. Generally the down-up approach, and what I mean by that is just general public have driven this industry into the stratosphere. What I feel lacks in the industry is a real not person, but entity really that is driving that bridge between traditional finance and the flow and liquidity that you have in traditional finance into the cryptocurrency space. I mean, we're pretty much there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think
It's been very progressive. Yeah, you hear me okay?
And now we can hear you.
Yeah. What Chrysalis wants to become over the next 5 years is really that catalyst in where we are building product that drives the bridge between traditional finance and the public at large. And I think that's really going to be our ethos, guys. We're all for regulation. We're all for compliance. We've spent a lot of time not just with Earth Exchange and getting licensed and standards and frameworks, moving towards a regulated, a very compliant business and operation, which is why we moved here and building Chrysalis off that foundation. But, Eric, airing that, where do you feel over the next 5 years, your role in Promax Digital Asset as a group can really kind of start? Where do you feel that we can go as an operation, and your input into that?
You know, for many years, I've worked with some extremely talented and extremely smart entrepreneurs and corporations, and you know, with a entity and with a group of collected individuals, you know, behind the Promax United and the Promax Digital team. I see extreme levels of empowerment as well as innovation coming through to the sector as a whole, not only on the retail side, but also on the institutional side. And, you know, at the end of the day, you know, over the next, say, 3 to 5 years, I think it's really around the strategy and partnerships and relationships that are going to further fuel the growth of, you know, not only Chrysalis, but the group itself.
Yeah, and we got a few more minutes. If there's any important questions, Nishant, from the community, it would be great. What I do want to do is take the time and just reiterate that it's a blessing to work with people like Eric, Chris, who's a phenomenal developer. He's been working day in, day out to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Alexander, you got cut off, but I think we have Christopher here, and I've sent a speaking request to Christopher. If you accept that, then you can join us in the conversation as well. Christopher, if you want to join, Alexander, you're muted, I think. We cannot hear you anymore. But anyway, guys, I don't see any more questions from the community. The call is still on for next few minutes. If you have any more questions for Eric, for Alexander, please do. Please do comment.
I think we can hear you now, Chris, if you wanted to say something.
It's just been great to hear this. Genuinely great. I can reiterate what's been going on, and I'm sure.
Maybe Chris, what would be helpful, maybe to highlight some of the real, true technology differentiators behind the Chrysalis L1 versus some of the other L1s. I mean, you're really on the ground day to day, building out such an innovative platform and infrastructure. I'd love for the community to be able to hear just what excites you and really why Chrysalis for RWA in general.
Mm-hmm.
So at this stage, hello.
Please go ahead. Yeah, we can hear you.
So at this stage, what we have is an extraordinary business model. The tech platform that we have is built out to create that ability to dynamically interact with the growing ecosystem, with new projects, with the desires of our participant members within the community, and in fact wider regulation changes. I mean, we all know that regulatory speaking, this space is so far on the cutting edge that we're actually contributing sometimes to national governments in various groups to future regulations. So the platform tech that we have is really designed around enabling that. That's really all that I have to say. And again, what we end up with then is something over time, right? As business opportunities and communication between all of the many stakeholders in this process, all the way through to the people who we're providing jobs to, right, in nation positive project all the way through, all the way from the very grassroots, all the way to multinational United Nations level decision making. As we go through that process over the next 6 months, 1, 2, 3, 4 years, you really start to see the depth of the technology that we have.
Mhm. Yes.
And quite soon as well.
Alexander, can you? Yeah, you can unmute.
Yeah, sorry guys, my connection seemed to be a bit unstable. I'm glad Chris joined. What I was saying and reiterating with Eric, it's a real blessing to be, so long standing in this industry, and to have a team, such as Chris, and his technology is truly scalable. It's being designed, and going back, Eric, to what you said, good things take time. Better things take longer. And I said that in our channels, but it's really true. And patience and community in this space is the heart of what we do as a business. And what Chris said, providing jobs, going down to that grassroots level, building nations, empowering people, that for me is really what decentralization, this industry is all about.
Yeah. Amazing. Okay, I'll take over. I think we don't have any community questions anymore, but I'll finish off the AMA with guys. What we learned today is RWAs basically it's making decentralization of the illiquid assets across the globe. That's what I like to call it, as a globalization of investments. That's what RWA does. It's using the new tech to make your life more easier, your mind or your financials more efficient. We had Eric today, who I would say is like over a decade of experience. That's almost the whole cryptocurrency generation that we already have seen. So yes, guys, we have Eric now as an advisor helping Chrysalis grow in multiple fronts. We have Christopher, who is developing phenomenal things. And guys, RWAs, it's still a very new thing. What Chrysalis is developing, it's an innovation. Innovation takes time. It's not something that everybody is building and we're building it again. It's an innovation and we are building innovation. And Chrysalis is at the forefront of innovation. Uh, One more thing is, within this whole space, we also had an Easter egg on what is coming next to Chrysalis. I would definitely share this recording again on Twitter. And if you see that recording, if you listen to that recording again, you will understand what's coming next to you guys. Eric, if you have any last words for the community about RWAs, about Chrysalis.
Yeah, just the thing I would say is, feel free to dive into more details. Look through some of the materials. There's going to be a lot of announcements and a lot of things coming for community purposes that will further allow, that educational and transfer to happen. And I think, with what is being planned on the Chrysalis front for RWA overall, stay tuned, as they say.
Yep, definitely.
Next week, guys, Eric, if you're happy to, we're all accessible, guys, anytime. Obviously we're 24/7 building this for a bright future for us, for everybody. But we are always accessible. Next week, Chris, great to have you. Please join as well. You're always a pleasure to hear from. I'm sure for the community in terms of the tech front. But we do have another next week, very exciting, very a champion in the blockchain space as well, that we're going to have another one of these, fireside chats, I guess, with people. It's an honor to have Eric, and a real OG in this space to help drive us forward, build our community, shape the future today, which is what we're doing. Thank you all for tuning in. It's always a blessing to hear your thoughts and feedback. give some in our groups. We're listening. We're here. And yeah, the future is bright, as Orange would say.
Definitely.
Or it could be orange, but it's not. It's Chrysalis.
Something is coming out of the Chrysalis. Definitely. It's the process.
Absolutely.
Thank you guys for joining us. As always,
Yeah, thank
this
you.
recording of the whole space on Twitter, so you can listen back to it at any point of time. If you have any more questions for the Chrysalis, for Eric, you can always leave those questions to us on our official channels. Thank you and have a nice day.
Good night, guys.
Thank you, everybody.